Hi, I'm Sarah from Heirloom Creations, and the ruler of the month is the Quick Easy Border Mitering tool. And it inspired the quilt behind us, and we have called it Uptown. This colorful quilt was selected from our huge selection of solids, and we chose for every single piece a different color. So it really is neat to see. We've actually made a laser cut kit. So we've cut all the squares, we've cut all the rectangles, and all you need is this tool. So if you've ever had quilts that had mitered corners, striped borders, and you've kind of shied away from them, all you need to do is watch and see how easy this will make your projects turn out perfect every single time. There's no Y seams, there's no guessing. So if you want perfection, this is the tool you'll want to get. The Quick Easy Border Mitering tool comes in two sizes, the standard size and a mini size. Along with the ruler comes full color instructions and directions on how to get your borders cut the proper length to make the miters. So let's talk about how we get started. We're going to take our pieces, whether it's the corner of your quilt or like the Uptown quilt that we were doing, we started with an 8.5 inch square. Sew your pieces along the side, stopping 1/4 inch from the edge. You need to make sure you're not stitching in to the other piece. Once you've got your pieces all set up, what you want to do is focus on the one we're going to mark first. We're going to mark the pink one down below. We'll fold the one we're not marking away so it's easier to see. And on the ruler, we've got a couple different things to point out. Number one, we have kind of the square up here with a seam line, dotted line that will match up with our seam line on our quilt, and kind of a boot shape down towards the side here. And what we're going to do is actually take a fabric marker. I'll use the Frixion pens, and we're going to draw along this line. Now note that this ruler is actually knows you're going to be using a marker, so it's been shaved off just a little bit. So when you draw this line and you cut on this line, it's actually going to be perfect when you're doing it. Now you'll be able to draw up about almost 1/2 inch away from your actual corner. Once you have that drawn, you can come back and continue drawing right up to the corner itself. Go. And then we're going to switch it around. I'm going to notice that I'm working on the back side of my quilt. I'm going to flip this over and set it again. I've also found for myself is to keep the edge that I'm working on always parallel to my body. And that way nothing gets turned around. But you do turn the ruler around. But lining up the square once again with the corner of the fabric, go ahead and mark your cutting line. You want to get that extended all the way up, hold that seam, and continue that line out. Now, if you have a quilt that has bigger borders than this actually goes to, just go ahead and move the tool down and keep drawing and extend that line all the way down. Next, we're going to actually use our scissors to cut this out. I'm going to actually fold this back so you can really see. Notice that your lines are further past each other because that is all part of the seam allowance in there. So just cut on the line. Remember, the ruler has allowed for that extra mark of the tip. Flip all the way up. And flip your second one. You do want to make sure that when you are ready to stitch these, that's when you cut them. You could have them drawn, but don't actually cut them until you're ready to sew. These are bias edges. They can stretch, so we want to eliminate any extra stretching at any time. Okay, so you have these kind of two overlapping ears. And if you look, there's about 1/2 inch seam allowance of overlap. That's how it all works. So now all you're going to do is just put your edges together, line up your corners, and pin. It is going to be best to stitch from the outside corner towards your seam. And that will flatten right on down. So once you're stitching, you're going to stop right at 1/4 inch from the edge once again. And that's going to open it up perfectly. Here's an actual border on a quilt where we'll do the same exact thing. If you want to go ahead and flip this edge under, I'm going to just leave that out. But I can really see the corner I'm looking for, lining up my seam allowances and drawing with my fabric marker. That all the way up there. These lines across the ruler really aren't for marking anything, but they do kind of help you stay parallel to the edge of your fabric. And then this will be where, since I can't reach all the way down, I'll go ahead and just move the ruler, line it up, and continue my line out. Then I'll just go ahead, flip it back. If you want to draw the rest of that seam, go ahead. Flip the ruler over. Line up with your stitching line on the dotted lines. And let that square sit right next to the raw edges of your quilt. And draw your other line. And then we'll cut, pin, and sew. When you're ready to sew, just put your 1/4 inch foot on and stitch from the corner up to where the seams meet. Now this is one thing that I do like to usually put a pin right at the final place that I'm going to stitch. I also have my machine stopping with the needle down so I can actually see exactly where I want to be. If I can take one more stitch, yes, and then I'm going to back stitch to secure those up. And then once I've gone ahead and cut my threads, this will really show how perfect the miters can actually be. So here's the proof. All the way perfect every single time. And here's what it looks like on the quilt that we did. So no matter what type of corners you're doing, you will find perfection with the quick, easy bordering mitering tool available at Heirloom Creations or heirloomcreations.net.